welcome back to another episode of Rob and Avis Ramble. We have another guest with us today. Before I get to introducing our guest, I should just give a little bit of warning. Avis, you're already laughing.
Yeah.
You're afraid of what I'm going to say.
Yes.
So Avis and I were up pretty late last night, having great, enthusiastic married sex like you should. And
My
I
man.
wore her out, and she's dragging a little bit today. So I don't know that she's going to be quite as spunky as I like her to be when we do these things. So you guys will just have to forgive her if she's not spunky. It's my fault.
That's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have, right? Yeah.
I revert to our guest name. Come on, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good segue to introduce our guest. So we have Paul Bauer with us, and he goes by the handle "Come On Man." Now on X, are you "Come On Man" Pod? Is that right?
Yeah, on X, I'm Come On Man Pod. There's
Okay.
it's interesting. I tried to do Come On Man podcast on all platforms initially, but originally I was only on Spotify and TikTok. And
Okay.
then, so I was at Come On Man podcast on TikTok, and then I got banned. I had like 30,000 followers and got full banned from that platform because I was just too outrageous, apparently. And
It's like a badge of honor these days, though. You know?
yeah, I mean, if you haven't been banned yet, you're not. Are you really being, provocative? So,
Right.
so I got banned, and I had to start a new account, and that became Come On Man Pod. And I also realized I shouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. Let me be on all the platforms. And so on X, I was Come On Man Pod, and then I had already had an Instagram, and that was Come On Man Podcast, and so Facebook's Come On Man Podcast, and YouTube's Come On Man Podcast, but X and TikTok are Come On Man Pod. I don't know. It's hard to be across the board all the time,
Yeah. Okay, cool. But that's a handle people can find you at if they want. So Paul, you've authored a few books from what I understand, and you kind of bill yourself as a relationship expert. I mean, and this is just my read. I've only known of you since we've been on X, which has been a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. So I don't know a ton about you. I haven't been following you as long as probably a lot of people have. But I kind of get the sense like you kind of specialize in dead bedroom situations. Is that accurate, or is that just a wrong read of it?
No, that's pretty accurate. I actually work with two types of men. It's dead bedroom situations. So if you're in a marriage where it's like it's going downhill, the intimacy is gone, and you want to turn things around, you give me a call. But not all relationships are meant to be salvaged either, and so some guys end up divorced or broken up with, and they have a hard time moving on. So I also help guys with divorce and breakup recovery as well.
Okay, very cool. And I so I've not really been, I don't know that I would call myself red pill because I just have been learning what the red pill is over the
It's
last
a
couple.
naughty term. It's a
It's a
bad
naughty
term.
term. Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently it can get you banned sometimes just saying it. Although not to say that I haven't come to learn, I think there are some kind of things, just the way that we've been living and the way I've been operating my life, that are maybe like very in line with the red pill. But something I'm learning about in terms of official red pill. But do you consider yourself? I mean, are you basically red pill centric in kind of your views and how you operate? Is
Yeah,
that
absolutely. Yeah, I am not one of those guys that I'm like, I'm red pill adjacent and I just want to distance myself from the term. Uh I prefer to go out there and sort of advocate for the efficacy of red pill and the red pill praxeology, because a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what red pill really is. They think it's, just guys yelling at women, guys trying to hold women accountable, guys trying to make women look stupid on podcasts, give them red claws and kick them off their show. And that's never been what red pill was supposed to be. But you get a lot of Jerry Springer types that just want to sensationalize and, you know, have the shock factor, and like, why not, right? Because it draws in views, but that doesn't help men at all. It just gets guys into a space where they just hate all women and they commiserate and they never do anything with their lives, and that's never been what the praxeology was for. So am one of those guys that's like, hey, you got it all wrong. It's actually a net benefit for men and women to understand red pill. You just can't bring women in on the game necessarily because it changes the game. So That's really what it comes down to. That's why I only coach men. But yeah, no, I absolutely would say I'm a red pill guy. Yeah.
Okay,
And how
good.
do you define red pill?
I think the best, easiest elevator pitch explanation of it is that it's men's sexual strategy and positive male identity. That's it. That's what it's always ever been. That's rule zero. If you've ever heard of the panel show Rule Zero, that's why it's called that. It's based off of the Married Red Pill. They had a series of rules, and Rule Zero is we're here for men's sexual strategy, positive male identity. And if you can't get behind that, you start moralizing, tell men what they shouldn't do because you might hurt feelings. You're kicked out of here because we're here for men's benefit. And the interesting thing about that is you can take your morals, you can be a Christian guy, a traditional conservative type guy, take the information from the praxeology, put your own morals on top of it, and live a happy life how you want to live it. It's always been about men having their being their own mental point of origin and not necessarily doing what everyone tells them to do, but doing what's best for them. And some men, they just want to have families and have healthy monogamous relationships. The red pill can you give you that. If you just want to not get into anything serious and just spin plates for the rest of your life, we can help you with that too. It's magical. It's however you want to do it. But no, a lot of people just get a bad idea because a lot of guys who I would really characterize them as, black pillars, guys that understand the praxeology and they resent women for their nature. They just can't handle it, and because it doesn't fit into their blue pill Disney fairy tale fantasy. Now they resent women for it, and now they just want to complain online. You see guys in the incel community do this. You see a lot of guys in the MGTOW community, men going their own way, being like that. And it doesn't help those guys because all they're doing is just complaining. They're not doing anything to level up and get what's theirs. You know what I mean? So I much rather uh, talk about red pill from a more positive standpoint and how men can actually use that in their lives.
Yeah, and so a while back, I was commenting something on a red pill post or a red pill centric type post, and I called it an ideology. And Ryan Stone chimed in and said, "It's not an ideology; it's a praxeology, right?"
Yeah,
And
that Ryan Stone, that son of a gun, he's the world's best red pill coach, didn't you? Or a red pill couch, did you know that? No, I I like Ryan. We were on a panel show Rule Zero for a long time together, so I have a lot of respect for Ryan. I've learned a lot of stuff from him. Yeah, praxeology is totally different, right? Because ideology, it's like a belief system, and but a praxeology is different. A praxeology is really where you just sort of model things that work and you leave things that don't. Have you ever heard of neuro linguistic programming or NLP?
yes,
Okay, so NLP is a praxeology. It's not backed by scientific studies or anything like that. The guys who founded it, what's his name, uh, Grinder, and I can't remember the guys that founded it. They were one guy was a linguist and one guy was a computer programmer, and they decided to start following around therapists. A lot of them were hypnotists, a lot of them were behavioral psychologists, and they were doing things on patients to help them get through whatever problems they were having in their lives. And these guys were like, well, we could just model that. We don't need to know why it works. We can just model it. And so modeling became the foundation of NLP. And then what they just did was just followed people around modeling what they were doing. They eventually figured out why some of the stuff worked, but they took what worked and left what didn't. And that's what a
mhm,
praxeology is. And so when it comes to red pill, it's basically guys in forums swapping notes about what works and what doesn't with women. And it started in pickup forums, like old So Suave forums, Reddit. There's lots of different forums out there. There's not just one, despite what Rollo Tomasi says. And God bless Rollo. I like Rollo and I love all of his stuff. But it would seem like it only came out of the So Suave. There's lots of different forums out there where guys are swapping notes. But the pickup artists were like, hey, we're going out here, we're running this game on women. and it works. We don't know why it works though. And so then you had these other guys bring in evolutionary psychology, and they're like, well, we think it works because women sort of evolved this way. And so
Mm.
it's like, is that true or not? Are there actual studies? No one knows because it's a praxeology. But what all we know is that we've had for decades now guys going out there going, okay, well, let me see if that works. Holy crap, it works. Okay. So we don't really care why it works. We just know it does. And we have these explanations behind it. Some people don't like those explanations, but all I know is it's very effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've said that the kind of little thing I've come to say about the red pill is I just the way I view it is I think it's just information, right? It's just information for really anybody. I mean, maybe it's aimed at men or information from a man's point of view, but it's just information. Where it goes a little bit off the rails for me is, you know, what do you do with it, right? Because I believe there's morals, there's morality, right? There's things, and it's like we can take these and we can kind of head down a moral path with it, or we can go down an immoral path. And I know that's getting kind of more into like more complete worldview of kind of, well, what do you believe our origins are? Were we created? Were we not created? Like, and all that kind of has to be rolled up into it. But I think just from a informational point, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's like this is just what works, regardless if it's moral or not. It works. Now, what do I
Yeah.
do with it?
Yeah, well, see, and that's the beauty of it, right? Because, like I said, you can take your morals and put it on top and live and apply it however you want to apply it, but one thing, so Ryan Stone actually pointed this out to me because when I was first getting into this, I actually originally didn't think that much of Red Pill. I thought Red Pill were the bad guys and all this kind of
Mm,
stuff. And when I was first learning game, and I was really studying How to Be a 3% Man by Coach Corey Wayne, who hates the Red Pill. Although a lot of the stuff that he teaches fundamentally is the same thing that we teach in Red Pill. It's actually kind of funny when
interesting.
you study it, but he doesn't like the Red Pill guys because we're all hating women or whatever, and that's not true. But so I didn't like that until I actually talked with guys like Rollo and Ryan and Rich Cooper and Dr. Robert Glover and stuff like that. I actually had them on my show and really just got to the bare bones of what it was. And at one point, I think it was on Twitter. God, man, it must have been 4 years ago now. I put out a post talking about why guys shouldn't cheat, right, and how it's just not the right thing to do or something. And Ryan just sort of stepped in. He goes, there's a reason why we don't apply morals in Red Pill. And he goes, because one of them being, we would have never learned what we know about women if we were never allowed to talk about the stuff that we shouldn't do. Right. And so a big factor, one of the biggest reasons why we've learned so much about women's behavior is because guys who aren't so morally, don't have that moral compass, they're sleeping with married women and they're sleeping with guys girlfriends, and they have these girls straight up lying to their men to their faces, right? What, like, they're on the phone with these guys. Oh, I'm just out with the girls right now or whatever. She's naked in bed with the guy that she's cheating on him with, and these guys are seeing this firsthand going, oh my god, she's like, not even a hesitation in her voice, she's able to do this. Obviously not all women do that, but we've learned that there's a lot of women that will do this sort of thing. And if we can never talk about it because of morals, we won't learn as much as we have. So we like to take morals and set them off to the side and just talk about the nuts and bolts of why it works and why it doesn't and what
Yeah.
people's behavior is. And then after that, you can apply your morals on top of it and decide not to go cheat. Like, for instance, right, I have a new course coming out at the time of this recording. It's going to be out on October 3rd. I don't know when this is coming out, and it's on dread game, on passive dread game. Now, the reason why I'm teaching passive dread is because morally, it's not even wrong. You're just being a charming guy who's social. He's a social, charming guy, and you happen to dress a little bit better and you happen to take care of yourself, and so you look better, and you want to go to the gym and be the best version of yourself. And yeah, when you go out and you're social and you talk to people, yeah, waitresses are probably going to, laugh at your jokes a little bit more than they should. They might actually smile at you and wink at you a little bit more than they should in front of your wife or your girlfriend. Is that a bad thing? Am I doing anything wrong? Can I control other people's behavior? No, absolutely not. But I can use that to my advantage when my wife sees that other women find me attractive. This thing called pre-selection will make me more attractive to her as well. So that's a net benefit for the relationship. If she finds me attractive, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So I like to teach passive dread because to me, it's not, there's no moral problem there. Whereas if you do active dread, there's more nefarious, manipulation type stuff, which you could do and it can be effective in certain circumstances. I just have a problem with it, so I'm not going to teach it. So in my course, I explain what that is, but then I talk about why I think that passive dread is more effective and you have less likely of a chance of it blowing up your relationship completely. Like if you go out and straight up cheat on someone, that might actually blow up your relationship. There might be some consequences there.
Yeah.
And so I don't like to teach that sort of thing, but that not to say that other guys aren't going out there and applying that and actually getting good results from that. You know what I mean? So that's just a personal choice, but that's me taking my morals and putting it on top of red pill and then just choosing what to teach and what not to teach. And if you would want to learn the more nefarious stuff, I'll just point you in the right direction to someone else.
Yeah.
you know?
Interesting. Yeah. Avis is, we've talked a little bit about this before, not using the same terminology that the red pill uses, right? Which has been kind of a learning thing for us. We've been learning about this and, this, what you call dread, but the way I've heard Avis put it before, she's like, yeah, I know Rob has options,
Yeah.
right?
When we go to the grocery store, there's literally like 3 checkers over there who will it's not gonna surprise me if one day they reach out and touch him because they flirt with him. I'm like, "If I ever die, Rob, just go to the grocery store and pick you up a new wife," because 'cause they're just throwing themselves at him.
Yeah.
It's
Or 2 or 3. I
hilarious.
might give this polygamy thing a try next time. I don't
Yeah, go
know.
ahead.
Yes. So what's fascinating about that is that most guys, their knee-jerk reaction is to calm down their wife's anxiety about this, because she's going to notice the other women checking you out way faster than you will. She's on her guard. She's like, why are you looking at my man? And guys are oblivious to that. Most guys are oblivious
Oh,
to it.
that is 100% true in this relationship all the time. Avis is like, that
Oh
chick's
yeah.
flirting with you. And I'm like, really? No, I didn't even see it. Yeah.
Right. And so most guys will either say, really? Are you sure about that? Well, you don't have anything to worry about, honey. I would never cheat on you and stuff like that. And to guys I coach, I say, no, don't say that. Don't reassure her that you won't. Now, I'm not saying go out and cheat, but you need to have more of the Ric Flair attitude, which is like, I can't help it. Look at all this. Of course, these women are going to be looking at me, right? Don't downplay it. Use it to your advantage. Um, but most guys are trying to downplay it, trying to ease her anxiety, trying to make her feel safe and secure. And they're like, no, I would never, I would never. But the thing is, one of Rollo's maxims, if you ever read his 5th book, which is phenomenal, it's called The Player's Handbook. He has 49 maxims of game in there. And one of them is women don't want their man to cheat, but they love a man who could,
Yeah.
which
Sure.
basically says she wants to know that she has an attractive man. Like who wouldn't want to be with someone that they don't find attractive? But one thing that women tend to do also in order to keep their men from cheating or keep women from trying to steal their men away is they sometimes self-sabotage, right? They'll give their guy an extra scoop of rice, or they'll make sure that he has plenty of food just to chubby him up, right? Or the guy's going to the gym and she's like, you're getting a little too hot. Here's a chocolate cake. You've earned it, right? But it's really this. Sometimes it's subconscious, them trying to keep you from reaching these goals because they don't want the women stealing you away. And so, but then what happens is guys get complacent and they let themselves go and they think that they're doing what their wife wants and we just got to make our wives happy all the time, and they let themselves go. And the next thing you know, their wives are like, oh, he couldn't cheat if he wanted to. And he's pretty fat, and I don't even want to have sex with him anymore. And I got a headache every night, honey. And next thing you know, they're in a dead bedroom situation.
Yeah.
And these guys are like, I don't understand it. She wanted me fat. It's like, did she though? You know, this is where we say like, don't necessarily listen to what women say, watch what they respond to, you know, and some guys let themselves get to this place.
What do you? I have my own theory. I'm gonna tell it to you, but what? Why do you think men in this situation, just like you were saying, were like, it's like, yeah, this chick's checking me out. She thinks I'm hot, and I'm like, oh, hey, Ava, you got nothing to worry about, right? Versus
Yeah.
saying like, hey, yeah, I got it, right? Like, maybe you should be worried, but not a lot of husbands won't do that, and I believe it's because a lot of, and especially in like a legal marriage, because they're worried about the divorce thing, right? So it's kind of like the whole like, I don't want to do anything that's going to potentially piss my wife off, that she pulls that divorce lever, because now I'm fucked.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so they kind of fear, there's like this fear reaction of, I don't wanna upset her, versus which in a lot of cases is really the opposite thing you should be doing, because if you do the thing you should be doing, she probably won't wanna divorce you anyways, right? But like, so
Yeah,
I
it's it's
that's
it's a
my
paradox. It's a paradox, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
is that kind of the same observation you have? I mean, is that why
Yeah.
men don't kind of like, they're worried about pissing their wife off, or do you
Yeah.
think there's more to it than that?
Well, it's society too. It's a lot of this stuff, but you know, we're if you ever read No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, he talks about how we're on several generations of nice guys now, going back to World War II. And so we're raised, that society pushes this where we walk on eggshells and it's happy wife, happy life. And the wife is the boss, right? It's you know, on Mother's Day, you always buy her the t-shirt that says the boss and stuff. And you look at Al Bundy, you know, where we're just taught to be bumbling fools, and we defer to her authority, and she knows what's best, and we're just dumb idiot men, and what do we know? And society programs that into us. So you know, our fathers are like that, or you know, sometimes our grandfathers are like that, and so we're like that, and we learn our relationships from our parents. And so the sad thing about it though is it's an absolute paradox. One of the oldest oldest articles on the online that referenced the red pill when it came to intersexual dynamics was a blog post by a guy that went by Hawaiian Libertarian, and it was called "Game is Red Pill," if I remember correctly. "Game is the Red Pill," and what he talks about in there is the emasculation paradox of relationships, where men don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to upset the wives. It's happy wife, happy life, or she might divorce us. But by acting like that, we submit to her,
Mm,
which women's nature, they don't want a man to be submissive. They want the guy to set the tone and lead the relationship. And
right.
so the only way to bypass this whole thing is by not falling for it in the first place. And it becomes a paradox because you know, the society tells us that this is how we're supposed to be, or else she might leave us. But by not doing that and having boundaries and setting the tone, and you know, not climbing on your girl's emotional roller coaster, and not trying to please her all the time, actually is the thing that's probably going to keep your marriage going for the long term. So it's counterintuitive, and that's why I think a lot of people don't like the red pill as well, is because it's not what they've been told their whole lives, and so they have this ego protection that's rejecting it. You know, they're like, hey, that doesn't go with the paradigm I've been programmed with, so they reject it. And it's most men, you can't red pill them until they've hit rock bottom, until they've, you know, had the wife goggles slapped off their face with her cheating, or they've gone through the family court meat grinder, and then they're at their lowest of low, and they're like, why did this happen? And then they're ready for answers. It's an interesting space to be in, and if I could have gone back and chosen not to get into the red pill space, I probably would have. But because it's so hard, you can't recruit, for the red pill. Like guys have to want the knowledge, and they seek it out because bad things happen to them, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's almost like you're at the bottom of this well and you're like, I'm here to catch you when you fall in.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I don't wish
Yeah.
you to fall in the well, but when you do, I'm here.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, exactly, and it's also kind of goes with the when the student is ready, the master will appear, right? It's one of those types of things where, you know, there's plenty of red pill guys out there, guys that have studied this stuff, guys from the community I came out of. I came out of the 3% man community, So just like Ryan came out of the Reddit community and Rolo came out of SoSwab, I came out of a Facebook group where we were all swapping notes about this stuff. So I have these guys that I call my 3% brothers. They've been studying this stuff for years, just like me. They know it all. A few of them are in my Wolfpack group, and yeah, it's just, and all of us have ended up here for the same reason. We all got dumped or cheated on or whatever, and bad things happen. And we decided to take this information and apply it so that we never have to go through some of this stuff again.
Yeah, and I apologize because I'm sure you've told this story before, but so you were married. You've got a couple kids. How many kids do you have? You have two.
I have 2 kids.
Two
Yeah.
kids.
So I
Okay.
yeah, I was married for 14 years, and it was pretty good. I would say it was pretty good for the first half of the marriage, like most
That
people.
7 year itch. Yeah.
It was pretty good for the first half of the marriage, and then it just started going downhill. And a lot of it, looking back and understanding what I know now, I 100% take full responsibility for it. I was not the one setting the tone and leading. I was always deferring to her authority because I thought she was my equal partner. And
Mhm.
so I always wanted her buy-in on things. I wanted her to make the decisions. And um, I should have been setting the tone and leading, and I should have, stayed in shape. And there was these times where I'd like yo-yo with my weight because I would lose all the weight. And then we'd go on vacation and she'd say, "Oh, you don't need to work out. We're on vacation. Just relax this week." And I'd be like, "Yeah, you're right. I've earned it." And then I would just not work out for 3 years. And then because that's what happens when you get out of that rhythm. A
Yeah.
lot of times you're like, the last thing you want to do is get back into it. And so I just wouldn't. And then I would gain weight and stuff. And by the end of the marriage, I was 50 pounds overweight when she finally filed for divorce. And that's when I found myself back on the dating circuit for the first time in 15 years. And I floundered. I had no idea what I was doing. I was waiting for written invitations from women to even go for a kiss because I was afraid of like the Me Too movement stuff.
Mhm.
And um, it was just an awful experience that first year on the dating circuit. And then, and
Which is
then,
kind of like another one of those paradoxes, right? Because
yeah,
it's like the women that want you kissing them don't want you asking for permission. But
yep.
then if she doesn't, now you're in a Me Too situation, right?
Well, see, and that's the thing. So I put videos out this like out there all the time about this, and I usually get a lot of flack from like feminists and stuff, right? But I would say like level-headed women would agree with me when I say this. I tell guys always go for a kiss. Okay, when you're on a date, first date, if you like her, just go for it. Now there, and I'll say there's signs. Sometimes she'll do the hair preening thing, and she'll like be trying to touch you, whatever. There's signs that she wants to do it, but other times you'll go on a date with a girl who's just as nervous as you are on a first date, and she's not doing any of the obvious signs. She's just there, sort of in her own head about, am I pretty enough? Like, does this guy like me? And so they're not doing any of those things. So I tell guys, just do it, just go for it. Just what's the worst that's going to happen? She's going to turn her cheek, right? And so for guys, it behooves them to understand a little bit of body language, because if she doesn't want to be kissed, her body language will tell you everything you need to know. She'll go and turn her cheek, or she'll go, okay, and then do this sort of thing, and you're like, okay, well, she clearly doesn't like this. And then you just don't call her again. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't tell her off and be like, oh, screw you. And because that's a big thing that women are afraid of, outright rejecting guys, because a lot of guys have no mental frame and they'll just lose their mind at her. So they'll be real sweet about it and just ghost him later because it's just easier than telling him I'm not interested. And just guys just need to be a little more perceptive, and they don't they can just you know gauge what's going on with her body language. They don't need to verbally go, may I have consent to kiss you, because that's going to dry up her vagina.
Yeah.
It's just it's not sexy.
Hurt her
She like
anus?
I would
Dry up the
imagine.
vagina?
I mean,
Okay.
I haven't dated in a while, but I would
Yeah,
yeah.
imagine.
like ever, really.
Yeah.
But a guy who goes for it and knows what he wants, he finds her attractive. It's a bold move. Like, women, like, they're hardwired to respond to a guy who's confident and bold. They're just they're Dr. Robert Glover says it really well. Women get the same buzz that men get when we see a great pair of breasts. When a guy's bold and confident, they're like, "Oh, I like this guy. He goes for what he wants." They're like he like they like that sort of thing. So I tell guys, just go for it. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to work out great for you. The one time, I think there was, when I was out spinning plates, there was 2 times where it didn't go that great. Like it was one time during COVID, I went for a kiss and this gal was like, "Oh, no, not on a first date like that." I was like, "No, okay, no problem." I just didn't call her again. And
Yeah.
then there was another girl who I went in for a kiss. She did kiss me, but she goes, "Oh, we're doing this now," is what she said. And I go, and so I went for a kiss, and I was like, "Are we doing this now?" And she was like, "Well, I'm trying not to kiss on first dates because blah blah blah, whatever." I think she was reading. There's this chick out of Canada that has a book on like no kissing for 3 months. It's stupid,
Oh,
but
wow.
and so the one that I did go out with her for a second date, and I just busted her ovaries the whole time about not wanting to kiss. And then at the end of the night, I was like, let me walk you over to your door. So I walked her up to her front door and I go, "So what are we gonna do? We gonna fist bump now?" Or because she didn't want to be kissed. And she's like, "Oh, it doesn't have to be like that," or whatever. And I just didn't call her after that, because I was like, this isn't going anywhere. But that's it. That was the worst thing that ever happened. But some of these black pillars, they hear the Me Too movement stuff, they hear the stupid stuff about women choosing bears, and they're like, "Oh, if I even talk to a girl, I'm going to get arrested." I've had guys say that. "I don't want to talk to
Wow.
a girl. She's going to call the cops on me." I'm like, "It's not illegal to talk to women. Are you mentally all there?" Like, I just don't understand some of these guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it really the whole black pill thing, and again, this is something I'm still learning about, right? But like it is how I'm kind of at this moment in time summarizing in my brain. It's like you're thinking in terms of absolutes because something happened to somebody over here. Now that is absolutely what happens in 100% of the cases, and that's never the case. It's never absolutes, right?
Well, a lot of it is buffers from rejection. A lot of these guys are just super afraid of rejection, and so they'll use stupid online statistics. They'll use Me Too movements. They'll use the bear thing. They'll use it all as an excuse to not even try. Not even try. So if you ask them like, "Well, have you ever gone outside and actually talked to women?" Because that women don't do this stuff. A lot of the stuff we talk about in the red pill space, if you go and talk to a real girl on this, out in town, they're not doing all the stuff that we talk about. So, but a lot of guys watch shows like Fresh and Fit, and they see are working girls. They see sex worker girls on the show that are OnlyFans models, and they think this is a representation of all women. I'm like, "Have you ever been to Kansas? Like the women in Kansas aren't like this. You know what I mean? Like the women out here on the western slope of Colorado, they're not like that. So, but these guys, they see this stuff online, they use it as an excuse to not even try, and it's really sad.
Oh, yeah. Um,
I find it all very interesting, even as a woman.
what's that?
This whole red pill
This
stuff,
whole
the
thing.
whole thing,
The
the
whole thing.
whole of
Yeah.
it, the studying of it, the understanding women, like, I don't see how it's a bad thing.
Yeah. So you're not in the it's bullshit crowd. You're
No, I
yeah.
mean, if a man wants to invest time in understanding how to be a man and understand, like, what women like and what women don't like, I don't how can that be bad for a woman?
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go, all you black pillars. There's from a lady who's been married for 30 plus years.
Yeah. And
Right.
and we have 2 daughters, and when we talk to them about their relationships, we talk to them in a position of them having a red pill man, right? Like a man
Sure.
that's a leader and giving them the space to be the leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when any of my daughters are having issues with the man in their life, like I'm kind of over there trying to coach them, and out of what I know from the point of view of thinking this is what's best for their relationship. Not necessarily what I don't want to make this sound wrong. I mean, not it is ultimately what's good for my daughter, right? For them to be with a man
Yeah.
who knows what he wants, and he's a good assertive man. That's going to
Mm.
ultimately be good for her and their relationship. But when I'm talking to them, it's from the point of view of like, this is how you need to be thinking about what's best for you, because ultimately that's going to be best for my daughter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too because I have 2 kids, and my daughter's my oldest. She's gonna be 21 here in January.
Mm.
man. And then my son, he just turned 16, and I give them two different sets of advice. My daughter, I'm like, yeah, you go get married, go, find a good man, a guy who's who makes more money than you, and whatever. And she wants to be an attorney, and she's dating this boy that she's been seeing for a couple of years, who I like. He's a good guy, and he's going to school to be an attorney also. And I'm like, perfect, this is great. Go get married and have fun. My son, I'm like, don't get married, don't do it. I'm like, you don't, you want the government involved in your relationship. And it's just because, and I had a guy on X ask me about this. He's like, why would you tell your daughter one thing and your son, you know, a different thing? He's like, why are you telling guys not to get married? Like, who's going to marry your daughter? And I said, well, don't worry about that. There's always going to be someone that wants to get married. Like,
Mm.
that's not even an issue. In fact, trying to convince guys not to get married is the challenge. Most guys are rushing for that white picket fence. And I was that guy too. That's why I got married so young. But my son, it doesn't benefit him. It totally benefits her. If she finds a good guy and it works out, awesome. She's got a good husband. If it doesn't work out, the state's going to make sure that she's taken care of. So then it's a win-win for her. But for my son, it's all risk. And it's just not a good idea. And so for him, I say, don't do it. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can navigate this. You can have long-term relationships. Just don't don't get a marriage license, and there's lots of different ways you can do this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's kinda interesting because I'm taking a little bit of a different approach. Well, I have 2 daughters and a son. They're all of adult age. They're all 21 plus.
Yeah.
Um, and my daughters are both with men they've been in long-term relationships with. Matter of fact, our oldest daughter has a child with the man she's with right now, and they're not legally married. We are not pressuring in any way for them to get married.
Yeah. Well, I
It
wouldn't either. I wouldn't, like, for me, I'm very big on mental point of origin. So if my daughter's like, no, no, we're not getting the government involved either because we're lawyers and we know how it is. I'm like, yeah, good. All right. Yeah. but
yeah.
but go ahead. But continue. So
Well,
you're
I was just
you're
gonna
not
say, yeah.
pressuring.
So when I talk to their, what I kind of say is husbands in quotes, because they're living as married people, and so I say that to them, like, you guys are living as married people. Like, I don't care if the government ever gets involved, and honestly, I don't think you should involve the government. I think you're asking for trouble by doing that, and I think you might end up with some dynamics you wouldn't have otherwise had in your marriage that could actually be detrimental to it, right? And that's kind of where my thinking is long term, is because I don't want these men ending up in legal marriage where they're now kind of becoming subservient to the wife because they fear divorce. And I think that's the
Yeah.
dynamic that ends up happening, to where if that dynamic isn't there and they're not in fear of that, they might do a better job of leading, right? Kind of leading like they know they should. What I like
Yeah.
to call the fuck it attitude, which is, I'm going to lead as I believe I should, no matter what I believe the consequences might be. But a lot of men, when they're in a legal marriage, they struggle to do that because there are very real consequences,
Yeah.
if you piss the wife off. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking with it. But
And
these
and that
men, they
and
all
honestly, that's where dread game comes in, because that is the thing. Like, men basically have this impending doom over their head on, hey, you better not f this up, because she's going to get all these cash and prizes. And so guys are like afraid to act that way. But the way women's their nature tends to be, is if they have no feeling of competition, they stop investing. You know what I mean? So that's where dread game comes into play, so that you can still get the government involved if that's what you're, maybe that's a big value of yours, that you're like, it's not real unless we put it on paper. Okay, fine.
yeah,
But you at least need to understand the cardinal rule of relationships, which is, whoever needs the other person the least has all the power in the relationship. And 9 times out of 10, in modern Western relationships, that's the woman doesn't need the man as much as he needs her, because if they get divorced, the government's going to make sure that she's taken care of, and they are not going to make. They don't even care if the guy's taken care of. They don't care if you're living out of a cardboard box, as long as she's getting her alimony payments and child
yeah,
support. And so guys need to embrace the concept, if they're going to get married, that there's no buffer from the sexual marketplace, and use it to their advantage. And then they're more likely to have a healthier loving relationship that way. It's kind of funny.
yeah, yeah. It is. interesting how it works that way. Very
Yeah.
counterintuitive to what you think.
Yeah, it makes
So
no damn sense. But it's funny. I have one of my guys in Wolfpack, and I'm gonna keep him anonymous and and his girl anonymous. Well, one of his girls, he's spinning plates. He's not married. He's seeing lots of women, but he's seeing this one gal who is self-described as a little bit of a liberal, and she reached out to me and she's like, I don't know if I don't know if this is one of your guys or not, but I got this guy and he's just so amazing and he's just I can't pin him down and I just can't figure him out and all this stuff. But when we're together, he I never have to think about anything. He's always planning stuff and he sets the tone and leads. And when I ask, I tell him what to do, he shuts me down. And she's like, and I kind of like it. And and all this stuff. And come to find out, yeah, she's was one of my guys's you know plates that he's spinning and stuff. And I was like, who's this gal, man? And he's like, yeah, she was a total liberal. And when she reached out to me, she was like, I've never been good at relationships. I've always been this sort of independent woman type thing. And when I'm around him, he just shuts that all down and doesn't let me do any of that stuff, and I can just sort of relax and be a woman now, and it's kind of nice, and I've never felt this way. And it's fascinating to watch when women um uh when they have it done to them where it's a good thing, where they're like, man, I like what's going on here. I just feel like a woman now. Um and then they find out the red pill praxeology after it, like why it works. They're like, oh, that stuff sounds great. I actually kind of like that red pill stuff. That's where you you find women that are like, yeah, I like this. I like
Yeah.
this. But women who have never experienced that, and then they're brought in on the game, they hate it. They always, they're in my comments going, "Who hurt you?" and all this kind of stuff. And as a woman, I would hate that. And I'm like, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Our our oldest she's like, I don't want to be the bad guy. And I'm like, well, this is the thing about letting your man make the decisions is you give him your input, he makes the decision, and then no matter what happens, it's his fault. I
Yeah,
was
there
like,
you
if
go.
it goes bad, it's his fault. If it goes good, you also have to give him credit for that because that's also his fault, right? So,
Yeah.
like, it's nice to not have that pressure hanging over you, right? Like, you're not the bad guy. You didn't make the decision. You didn't make the final decision. You don't have to.
A lot of guys are afraid to make decisions because they're also afraid of being the bad guy, and they're like, I don't want my wife upset with me, because it's all about, I can't possibly have her upset, and it's all about managing her emotions. And then they end up walking on eggshells. And so for guys, I like to tell them, like, are women ever really happy at the end of the day? Like,
We
you can
are.
try your hardest to make them happy, but are they really? And so just
it
don't.
depends on where their hormone cycle is, Paul.
Right,
You know.
right. And they can be happy 1 minute and keep losing their crap and 20 minutes later, and it's all just because of the chemicals in their bodies, right? Like, they can't control that. So I tell guys, like, don't own it. Just don't climb on her emotional roller coaster. She doesn't want you there anyway. She needs to know that someone in the relationship has their feet on the ground, and as a man, that's supposed to be you. Whether you have control of your emotions or not. Most guys don't. Most guys have no emotional control. And that's the hardest thing for me when, as a coach, is coaching guys to have some emotional control and not climb on their girl's emotional roller coaster, because they're just conditioned to fix. I got to fix it. Oh, if she's broken, if she's not happy, we've got to fix this. And men are fixers, right? And so if you ever read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, right? Classic book. It's not necessarily red pill, but I just had Dr. Gray. I just recorded an interview with him. Guy is
Oh,
actually
wow.
more red pill than you would think. And that book, the biggest thing in there is both men and women don't want unsolicited advice, but for different reasons, right? Women don't want your advice because they just want you to listen. They want to feel heard and understood. And guys don't want their girls' advice because we want to feel like we got it. Like, I got this handled. Don't step on my manhood, okay? Don't tell me what to do. You're not helping. My mom is so bad about that. She just wants to help my dad and me so bad. She's just like, my dad and I are like fixing stuff, and she comes out and she's like, "Oh, and well, have you tried the doodad? You know, what's the doodad? Like, you're not helping us, right? You're like, but she's trying to help, and it's like, just get out of here. You're not helping. But that's the thing that is so hard for men, when it comes to fixing things, because we do, like, we like to work on cars, we like to fix stuff. We're always trying to fix our girls. Stop. Just let her have her emotions, however she's going to do it. She's got to process it on her own. It's not your job to fix. And once you do that, when guys finally get that and it clicks with them, they're like, oh, my wife is like a totally different person. She's so loving and caring and all this kind of stuff. It's like, she's making me sandwiches and stuff. Like, what happened? I'm like, you just let her be her, you didn't try to fix it. You just listened to her. And it's amazing. And you don't have to own it yourself. You have your own problems to deal with. Isn't that great? You don't have to solve her problems too. Isn't that amazing? But a lot of guys, they can't deal with that. It's so hard for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, maybe this might be a good segue. Some of the things we've been talking about, I wanted to ask you about. So the you had just a recent episode I listened to. It was like, should you pay the bills or something, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking a little bit about the trad lifestyle, and you weren't necessarily like down on it. You were just saying men need to know what they're getting into, and I thought that was kind of an interesting and actually very close to my heart because Avis and I have lived what I would consider to be a pretty trad lifestyle. I mean, we went to high school prom together. We've been together ever since. I'm 52, she's 51. We a lot of years together, right?
Yeah.
Married young in our very early 20s, and eh, you know, she's been out of the workforce for 20, almost 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the 9 to 5 workforce, right? So, in terms of like she was home taking care of the kids, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, keeping the house up, right? I'm going out slaying the dragons, bringing the money home, doing all that sort of stuff. And I would consider that to be pretty traditional in terms of how you might define traditional, right?
Yeah.
But it is risky. And I think that was kind of the thing that you were kind of getting at in the podcast episode I listened to. Um, so I just kind of maybe hear a little more expanded thoughts on that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So that one, at the time of this recording was this morning actually. But yeah, some guy I did I've sponsored videos. People can, like, if they want me to just answer a quick question in a video, they can sponsor a video. And so I do those on Tuesdays. And this guy wrote in about God, what was the thing last week? Oh, he wanted to talk about giving up. He was trying to get me to talk him out of giving up on dating completely, is what is what that episode was. And so I just went through about like all this kind of stuff about guys quitting, guys being quitters and stuff. And so someone in the comments was like, you know what, you need to do a episode. I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether men should pay for everything in long-term relationships. And I was like, I don't like telling guys what they should or shouldn't do. And that's a part of the red pill praxeology too. If you ever go to the married red pill, there is a married red pill, by the way, guys trying to fix their marriages with red pill praxeology.
interesting. Okay.
They have on the side of Reddit where they have like pinned comments and pinned stuff. They have what they call that's called the sidebar, and then there's required reading. So if you're going to post in the married red pill, you have to have read all these before you're even allowed to post. And which is good, because once you read all these things and multiple times, most of that will fix most of your problems. And one of the books in there is called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty by Manuel Smith, I think his name was. And I think it came out in the 70s. And it's all on assertive communication. And one of the things that he talks about at the beginning is the concept of should. When people say, you should do this, you should live your life
Mhm.
this way, a lot of the times it's based on that person's values and them trying to instill their values on you. I see a lot of like really hardcore Christian people, not to crap on Christianity or anything like that, but you see a lot of hardcore Christians when I talk about guys not getting married, they're like, well, the Bible says you should get married because of da 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 da. And I'm like, well, what if I don't believe in your Bible? Then why should I
Yeah.
listen to your
Or what if
Bible?
the government has meddled in God's plan for marriage?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that When I Say No, I Feel Guilty points out is that should is manipulative language, and if anyone tells you what you should or shouldn't do, your your manipulation radar should go up and go, wait a second, why should I do anything you tell me to do? And so I don't like telling guys what they should or shouldn't do, but I will tell you, you know, if that's something that you truly want to do, because some guys, I mean, that's in their that's in their blood, man. Like that's in their programming. They have to do it. They have to do it this way. It's the right way to do things. Okay, great. But just understand the risks. There's risks involved, and but otherwise, do what you're going to do anyway. It's kind of like cheating, right? It's like I personally don't think it's a good idea to cheat. I'm not going to tell you you should or shouldn't, but there are consequences, right? Like if you go and you're sleeping with a married woman and you get caught by your husband, you might get blown away by a shotgun, right? Like that's a consequence that you might have to consider here on whether whether you should or shouldn't do that or not, but I'm not going to tell you what's morally right or not. That's up to you and your God and whatever, and however if that makes you feel terrible for ruining a family, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do about it. So when the guy asked me, should men pay for everything in a long-term relationship? I'm like, I personally would never do that again because I did that. My now ex-wife, uh, when we first got together, I should have listened to these or noticed these red flags, but a lot of this was we were already married because I was rushing for that white picket fence and we eloped and bad idea all around. But early on in our marriage, she was going to college and I was still in the Navy, and she asked me if she could quit work so that she could focus on school. I just really want to focus on school this semester. Can I quit? And I was like, well, I don't make enough money to keep our apartment going. I'll have to get a second job. Well, will you do that, please? Will you please do that? So yeah, I'm a man, I'm a provider. I went and got a second job, and I worked all day in the Navy, got off work, went and worked as a security guard till like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then got 2 hours of sleep, and then got up and had to go to muster at 4. And that I did that for like 6 months. I started getting in trouble with my command because I was late for muster and all this kind of stuff because I was oversleeping because I was working too much. And I finally told her, "Hey, you can't. You got to get a job. I can't keep doing this, and the command doesn't want me to do it anymore." And so she ended up getting a job. And then when we had our daughter, when she was born, I distinctly remember this because I was basically an intern at my first IT company, and a position for help desk opened up, and so I applied for help desk and I got the position, and I'd been working for that for like a year. And so I call her up. I'm so excited. I got the promotion. I call her up. I'm like, honey, I just got promoted today. I'm going to be a help desk starting on Monday or whatever. First words out of her mouth weren't, "Oh, I'm so happy for you. Oh my God, you've been working so hard for this. Wow, I'm so proud of you." It was, "Can I quit now? Can I
Mm.
quit my job then?" Right? And so that's really stuck in my craw this whole time because I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And then she became a stay-at-home mom. And when we sat down and had the discussion about it, I said, "Look, if I'm going to be the sole breadwinner, I'm not doing dishes. I'm not doing laundry. Like that's your job now. Okay, that's your." Well, anyway, she managed to find a way to finagle, all the chores into my lap too, while I was also being a full time, uh, you know, provider for the household and stuff like that. And so that's a lot of the reasons like the last half of the marriage was bad because I was the one doing all the damn laundry, I was doing all the damn dishes, I was cleaning the damn house because she wasn't doing a damn thing. And so I often say, a lot of women these days don't want to be stay-at-home moms. They don't want to be wives. They just want early retirement, and that's unfortunate. But that's also sort of speaks to our society and how a lot of people are brought up these days. So and what's sad is because of modern feminism, um there's a lot of women with this sort of entitled mentality, or they don't want that traditional life at all and they just want to be boss babes. But then they end up being miserable because they're CEO executives, and it's hard to date up and marry up when you're a CEO because you're at the top of the top, right? So if you're a CEO woman in a Fortune 500 company, now you got to find a CEO of a Fortune 50 company, and those guys are few and far between, right? And so you know it's like we've given women everything that they've wanted and they're still unhappy, at the end of the day. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's another one of those kind of like competing, because I understand what you're saying in terms of, the having the wife contribute, I guess you never really know what you're gonna get, right? So,
Yeah.
like you said, like, there is the wife who's gonna be looking for early retirement, and that's wrong, right? I mean, being a stay-at-home wife or mother, like, it's a job, and
Yeah.
there are responsibilities that come with that, and there's things that you need to be doing in that role, that should be expected of you just like you would have any other job. But to your point, there are many wives that that's not what they want, right? They're just home, and they
Yeah.
just wanna relax and eat their
Well, I
donuts and
mean, what did they
watch.
do all day? What did they do all day?
Well, so this was my ex-wife's MO. She would make lots of mommy friends and go and do a lot of play dates, like literally every day play dates. And basically she would meet up with these moms and they would all drink mimosas and have the kids play with themselves so that they were, self-contained and they didn't actually have to do anything for the kids. That was it. It was like social hour for moms. Or if the kids were at home and she wasn't out, it was like give the kids a tablet, put them in front of a Dora the Explorer or whatever, while she just sits on the couch and talks to her sisters all day, and her sisters don't work, and they're all doing the same thing, and that was it. And it's interesting because James Sexton, I don't know if you know who James Sexton is. He's like a really famous family court attorney out of New York, and he had a video about this the other day, which was hilarious because he deposes some of these stay-at-home moms, in divorce cases and stuff. And so he'll ask them like, "What do you do all day?" And they'll go, "Well, I get the kids ready for school and I take them to school." And he's like, "Oh, okay, so you like get them in the car and you drive them to?" Well, no, I walk them to the bus stop. Okay, well, what happens when the bus picks the kids up and leaves? Like, then what do you do? Oh, well, I do all sorts of things. Like, oh yeah, like what? Well, I do the laundry. Okay, so you go and you're there for hours on a scrub board, like down by the river, doing. Oh no, no, I dump it in the laundry machine and I put it on. And okay, well, then what do you do? Oh, well, I do lots of things. Yeah, sure. Like what else? Like it ends up being like they hand the kid a tablet and they get on the phone with their other, your early retirees and screw around. Like it's not that hard for a lot of a lot of these women out there. What's sad about it though is that women that truly do want to be good moms, they truly do want to be good wives, and they want nothing but to have that lifestyle and raise their own kids and be fulfilled as mothers. These other women are giving them bad names, and now
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys who have a bad sour taste in their mouth for it, and so it's going to be even harder for those women. It's an unfortunate situation that we're in as a society.
Yeah, well, it kinda
Mm.
goes back to those absolutes we were talking about, right? It's like,
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, yes, there are women that are like that, and that's what they just want the early retirement, but that's not all women.
Right.
But, it's like if you're a dude and you're gonna get married and you're like, "Well, maybe I'm gonna have my wife be a stay." I don't which one do you have? I don't know, maybe you don't know until you find out, right?
That's why
Yeah.
I recommend to guys that they create a contenders list, and a lot of guys aren't doing this. They're not dating intentionally, where they're like, I'm trying to find the right woman for me.
Mhm.
And you might hear it called in the space vetting, and Ryan Stone doesn't like the term vetting because he's like, a lot of people are on their best behavior for the first 6 months to a year of a relationship anyway. And so you never really truly see who they are until you get into that committed relationship, right? Um, I get that, but to some extent, you can sort of limit who you're going to spend all your time with. And I learned this both from Corey Wayne and Dr. Glover of having this what I call a contenders list. And it's just where you sit down and you figure out what you truly want in a relationship. And maybe you do want the traditional stay-at-home mom lifestyle maybe you do want to actually get married. Okay, that's great. Like fine. So sit down and figure out what are your must-haves in this relationship? Like what kind of qualities do you want in this woman? And don't just make it superficial stuff. Like I want her to be, thin and hot and big boobs and stuff. Like that's great. You add that in there, but you
Yeah,
also
those are
want it.
great things. Yeah,
Those are
thin,
great,
hot, and big
wonderful
boobs.
things. Like
Nice
let's
ass
let's
too goes a
yeah,
long way.
no, like 100%. But you also want to have qualities like is she nurturing? Is she caring? Does she have empathy? When you have a conversation with her, does she try to manipulate you and use a bunch of guilt trips and all this kind of stuff, or does she actually have an actual like let's resolve this problem for a relationship and come to the table with actually wanting to work on some stuff, because there's plenty of women like that out there, right? So you got to figure out what you want. And then I recommend, make a list of like 10, 20 things. And then out of that, figure out what are your absolute must-haves, like highlight 5 of them. If a girl doesn't have these 5 things, I'm not getting in a long-term relationship. I'm not going to marry this girl. And then on the other side of the paper, write out what you don't want in a woman, right? I don't want a woman that smokes. I don't want a woman that has tattoos or whatever. I don't know. A lot of guys are obsessed over that. I don't
Mm.
really care about tattoos, but you know, whatever you don't want. And then same thing, highlight your 5 deal breakers. And what you'll find is if you're especially if you're focusing on what you want and not necessarily what you don't want, your brain has this really cool feature called the reticular activating system, which is a filter because our brains are taking in so much data from just all of our 5 senses at any given moment. If it processed everything that we took in, we would go insane. Our brains aren't equipped to handle it. So it has this feature where it filters out most things, and we're only really focused on what we find important to us. And whatever we focus on the most is what we're going to see most of because our brains don't look at positive and negative. It just sees what we're focused on the most. So a lot of these black pillars that are focused on, these terrible women that are like, whatever, they all have tattoos and they're all, 304s on OnlyFans. Like that's all you're going to see because that's all you're focused on. But if you focus on more traditional type women, women that have these values, all these types of things, you're going to see more of those women out there. And then it's just a matter of keeping your options open while you're on the dating circuit until the really good women prove themselves. And then it's like the cream rises to the top. This is what women do. This is how women date, right? We call it spinning plates. Women just call it dating. Like women are natural. They like to keep their options open to find their best guy possible. And why wouldn't they? But most guys don't. Most guys go for the first girl that's nice to them, and they just go all in on the one. We call it sniper mentality, and they don't. They totally get blinders for all the other possibilities out there, and they'll find much better women if they just keep their options open and test a woman's ability to fit in these 5 things. And then when you find that girl, you have much more greater chance of success, I think, if you are gonna pull the trigger and get married.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if there's a perfect answer. Why are you laughing?
Your list. I'm still laughing at your list.
My
There's no
list.
guarantee. And
Oh,
that's the hardest thing with the red pill. The real pill truth is there's no guarantees,
yeah.
right?
I
And yeah, and that's a hard thing for guys who are really marriage focused to accept is they want a guarantee. It's like
Yeah,
you
there's
can't have
gonna
it.
be some risk, and I think you gotta set some. In our marriage, when Avis when she stayed home, and it was kind of around the birth of our first child, we decided she's gonna stay home, be a stay at home mom. But there was no, it was very clear, like she still had a job, and we literally had like a list, and I was like, here's the things that you like. This is what's expected of you in this role, right? This, and this, and this. And if these things aren't met, then you're not going to be a stay at home mom, right? You're gonna have to go back to
Mhm.
work. We're gonna have to do something else, right? Now her credit, she did very good in that role and excelled at it. But not all women will. And
No. No, yeah, and
yeah,
what was interesting about my ex-wife is, she was always a very social person. She always had to be jibber jabbering with somebody, and,
mhm,
she was her most miserable when she didn't have any friends around, and she didn't have her mom friends and stuff to go do play dates with, and she was stuck with the kids. Then she was, like, depressed, and I would tell her, I go, why don't we, this clearly isn't for you, and like this clearly isn't mentally for you, and that's okay. Why don't you put the kids in daycare and go get like a just a part-time job where you can socialize with people? And she refused to do that because she didn't want to be judged by her mom and her sisters, you
uh,
know but so that she didn't want to do that. She also really didn't want to work, but she had a really hard time keeping friends because she would always stab these chicks in the back and they all ended up like not liking her anyway, you know what I mean? And so she would make friends easily, but she couldn't keep friends and she was always depressed, and it was like I don't know what to tell you, you know? I don't know
yeah.
what to tell you. All I know is like in hindsight, if I could have gone back and really paid attention to those red flags, probably would have never been in that relationship to begin with. But then I wouldn't have these kids. So I wouldn't change anything really. But I do take that information and I use that going forward. Like Nurse Chick, she really has put in more effort than any other woman I've ever met in my life. And Nurse Chick continues to invest like every single day into this relationship, and I'm continually just blown away by how much she does that. But she also wasn't the perfect wife to begin with. She was married and got divorced. Her husband actually divorced her
Mhm.
because she ended up gaining a bunch of weight, and she was a nagging, insufferable, browbeater of a wife, and he just got sick of it and filed for divorce. And so she had this, sort of red pilling of her own, going, "Oh my God, I got to change things if I'm going to keep a man." And so she lost all the
Mhm.
weight and she became a fitness competitor. And she started reading. She found my stuff after we dated. She stalked me online and found me online, and she found all my stuff online, and she started, reading material from the woman's perspective. So she recommends books like The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands by Dr. Laura, Keys to the Kingdom by Alison Armstrong, or like her two books that she's read on repeat, just to make sure she understands me better and she can better invest in a relationship. And she just wrote a book herself called Belly's Full, Balls Empty, because my friend Erin Clary was like, "That nurse girl of yours, she sounds wonderful. She needs to write a book." so, so so I went and told her, I go, "Hey, Clary says you need to write a book." She goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess I could do that." And so she banged one out. It
Did,
took her about a year to do it, but she banged one out.
did she she bikini? You said she's a competitor. What does she compete in? Bikini or a different class?
It was a different class. So she's done a couple. But she did wellness, and
Okay.
she did some other ones and stuff too. But yeah, she was up there in her bikini and doing the
Yeah.
muscle flexing
You
stuff.
know, I know. So like we had Private Eye Russ on him a couple weeks back, and one of his things I've seen him warn about. He's like fitness competitor, stay away from him. It's
Uh,
like a thing. But I will say, and kind of like nothing's absolute, right? I think there's a lot of the relationships that we know that are very good relationships and very good marriages. The chicks compete, and like I think not to say that there's not a lot of crappy stuff that goes on in that community. There is, but it's men like having a fit wife. So
yeah.
it kind of that goes a long way in a marriage, right? And a man will put up maybe with he's not so bothered by your bullshit when you look good and doing your bullshit, right? In a way, to say it
Well, to an extent, because my
to an
ex-wife was
extent, sure.
my ex-wife was always like really, she's not good looking anymore. She really let herself go. But when we were together, she was a total smoke show.
Yeah.
Like she looked really good. She didn't. She was one of those women that didn't really have to work out that much. She just
Mm,
didn't eat that much, and she just had a naturally decent figure and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, Nurse Chick, she's on my must-have list, because I was very adamant about the contenders list thing. I was like, she has to be at least into fitness as much as I am,
yeah.
you know, because I'm not going to just be out there I work out 5 days a week. On the weekends, I might go for a hike or I might go for a walk, but it's never anything serious on the weekends. But Monday through Friday, I've got my regimen that I do without fail. I've made a promise to myself in 2016 that I was going to do this no matter what. And I want to be with a woman that takes her health and fitness as seriously,
Yeah.
she doesn't have to be a fitness competitor. In fact, Nurse Chick is not competing this year because she went back to college to become a nurse practitioner. So
Mm,
she's focused on that. But so she hasn't been going to the gym as much, but she has at least been going for walks. She goes out and does her walks and gets her steps in and stuff like that. And that's fine for me as long as she's doing something and not
yeah.
just letting herself go. Then like that's great. You don't have to be crazy about it, but you have to at least not just be sitting on the couch like getting fat, because I'm not sitting on the couch getting fat. So I expect the same. And if you decide that you don't want to work out anymore and you're just going to sit on the couch and be fat, well then we're just not going to be compatible anymore, and that's unfortunate. But you know
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer here. I've been just trying to be conscious of your time, but I did want to ask you just a couple more questions. Maybe we could quickly drive
Sure.
through. So, kind of on this dead bedroom topic.
Yeah.
So, huge issue in a lot of marriages. Like, how would you define a dead bedroom? Like, what does that mean? Like, so if a man is like, I don't know if I'm in a dead bedroom or not. Like, what is how do you
Yeah.
determine
A lot of guys don't realize that they're in a dead bedroom, because like they still get sex. Some of them haven't gotten sex in years. Some of them haven't gotten sex in months, but some of them still get sex on occasion. Like maybe once every couple weeks, maybe once a month, maybe even once a week. But when it's once a week, it's just lackluster starfish, hit it and quit it, and it's over in 3 seconds, and she's not satisfied. And he's not really that satisfied. He would much rather her get into it, but it's better than nothing, right? It's kind of I heard a guy say it once. He's like, sex is kind of like pizza, even like a crappy frozen pizza is still pretty good, so a lot of these guys are just content, and then they'll just take care of themselves with porn or whatever, and they're happy. They're like, yeah, it was whatever. And then their wives will gaslight them into thinking this is normal, like, no, sex normally fades in a long-term relationship. And these guys are like, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess sex does fade in a long-term relationship. And so they just think it's normal. And so whenever I put out some inflammatory stuff online, because that's always fun to do. I usually get
you share some of the best memes, by the way. I'll
oh,
just say that.
thanks,
If
man.
people aren't
Thanks.
following you, they should. You share a lot of good memes. Inflammatory too, which I love.
If oh yeah, they're the best kind. So every once in a while, I'll get guys in there going, "Well, what do you know about relationships?" Because in my title, it's relationship expert, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do you know about relationships? Like, how long have you been married? And that's the metric. And I'm like, well, I'm not married at all, right? How long you been married? And they're like, oh, I've been married 30 years. Like, I know what's going on. I'm like, oh, well, how's the sex?
Yeah.
You know,
Good question.
very,
Yeah.
very rarely do these guys that boast that they've been married for so long have a great sex life. They're like, usually what they'll do is they'll get mad at me for that question. How dare you? How dare you ask such a personal question? And I'm
No,
like, well,
it's a
just say you're
completely legitimate question. I mean, why are men getting married?
right.
Right? I mean, mostly sex. That's the truth.
They want
So,
guaranteed access to
yeah.
sex, right? They think that, hey, I put a ring on it, I get sex on demand now. This is a wonderful thing, right? And women sort of dangle that carrot, like, hey, we'll have sex all the time. And so guys go into it with this preconceived notion, but once you put that ring on it, they're like, oh, I got you now. I know you're not going anywhere. Now I also don't have to put out, and the state won't enforce that she has to put out. That is her
Right.
body, her choice now, right? But it's not your money, your choice. You have to provide still. It's not fair. So, but we've already beat that horse to death. So, so these guys, the metric is, I've been married for a long time, therefore my marriage is a success. And I'm out there to say, no, it's not. If it's in and of itself, it's not a success. Okay. But if you've been married, however long you've been married, and you still are madly infatuated with each other, the sex is still really good, you guys love each other's company, that's success. That's true, like, desire still, right? But no, now you guys are glorified roommates, and now you're placating yourself with these lies that sex naturally fades over time. No, it doesn't. And you know how I know? Because when people get divorced, right, they haven't, like, a wife hasn't banged her husband in months or years, they get divorced, and now all of a sudden she's got high libido, and she's on the dating circuit, and she's living her
Mm.
best life, and she's meeting all these exciting guys, and she's having sex now. But she wasn't with this guy because she didn't like him that much. She didn't have that genuine desire that we talk about a lot in the
Yeah.
red pill space. And so a lot of people, they blame it on hormones and all this stuff, but same thing. If once that divorce happens, miraculously, she's got her hormone levels are fine, and she's got high libido all of a sudden. It's all comes back to attraction and desire. And so a lot of times that can be fixed. You can turn things around. It's just that a lot of times, guys, we've been betatized. There's a 5-step process. If you've ever read the book Practical Female Psychology, um, great book. It breaks down the betatization process, and I've taken that and I've added it in my book. Get her. I don't know if we can cuss on your podcast. Or you
Sure.
guys? Okay, yeah. I have my book. Get Her to Fuck You Again is
Mm.
for dead bedrooms, and it breaks down the betatization process, and it's a 5-step process. It starts with testing the man. Women shit test us. They do these things called, you can call them all sorts of different things: fitness tests, comfort tests, all those things. The same thing. They're testing you, and a lot of them do it consciously or subconsciously. They will all test you. Like they sometimes it's a conscious. I'm going to put him in the situation to see how he reacts. Sometimes it's just I'm acting this way as a woman, and how you react determines if it was a test or not, right? And so a lot of times if you do things, you handle things right, it wasn't a test at all. She just loves you and you're acting the way a man should act. But when you get up in your emotions and you lose your shit and you yell at her or whatever, now all of a sudden a light bulb goes off and she goes, "Oh, he just failed something. I don't know what it is," right? So that's testing. And then it's getting a man to be emotionally vulnerable, right? So getting him to open up. Hey, something's bothering you? Tell me what your feelings are. And society says be more vulnerable. And so guys are like, oh well, this is eating at me, and this is my problem, and da 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 da. And then she hears all this going, God, you can't handle life. What are like what happens if something serious happens? You can't handle all that. And you're crying like a little bitch right now. And now they lose respect for you. And then that leads to putting the man to work, right? So now she's like, okay, I'm not that attracted to you anymore, but I would be more attracted if you did the dishes more, or if you wouldn't clean the goddamn gutters like I asked you to do 17 times. And so guys are like, oh yeah, and her love language is acts of service, because they start reading love languages, trying to figure out why their wife won't have sex with them. And so they're like, oh yeah, if I did the chores more, she'll love me. And doing the dishes and the laundry has never once made a woman's panties wet. Never once in the history of
No.
ever. It's not
No.
sexy. It's not sexy at all. So don't let women lie to you on that,
You,
right?
you
So
know
they'll
what Will is saying? Like, yeah, I'm not going to do those damn dishes, but you put a bikini and heels on, I'm going to watch you do it.
yeah, there you go.
Right.
And so that's putting the man to work. And then and then once she's lost so much respect for you, now it's her evolutionary selfishness kicks in, and now she's like, I'm going to make this guy do whatever he can to provide for me and the kids. That's all I care about. I don't give a goddamn about him. And this is where a lot of women get really selfish, and they don't care how many hours you're working. They don't even want you to come home, work 5 jobs, please, because all this money is coming in. And then they start banging the pool boy or whatever, because now they're neglected, and then or they just file for divorce and go out and leave you, right? And that's where their evolutionary or sorry, that's where their self-determination phase kicks in. And so usually when guys are in a dead bedroom situation, they're down on phase 3 or 4. They've been failing tests for years, and she's just so sick of his crap that she just won't put out anymore. And the thought of even having sex with her husband is disgusting to her. And so she won't do it. And so these guys come to me going, how do I turn this around? And it's like, um, you got to get back to the beginning. You got to get back to the beginning of one, the relationship. You were doing attractive stuff in the beginning, typically, and then you got to start learning how to pass her tests. And a big thing about passing her tests is actually not taking her so goddamn seriously. And,
Mhm.
and so a lot of my misogynist stuff online that I like to put out, there's a method to my madness, and largely it's because guys take women too damn seriously. And the funny thing is if they stop doing that, they would actually do much better with women, because they wouldn't be climbing on her emotional roller coaster all the time. They wouldn't be failing her tests. When she does test him, they'll turn it into playful, funny banter. Like you said with, well, I'm not going to do that, but you can put on a bikini and do it, right? Like that's what we call agree and amplify, and it turns something that could be turned into a fight into playful, flirty banter, and women actually love that. And the guys that really can be quick on their feet and do the agree and amplify, they'll turn their relationships around within 2 weeks working with me, doing that kind of stuff. The guys that have a hard time are the guys that are too goddamn serious. They have no sense of humor, and their only tool in the toolbox is indifference, right? Which is another good way of handling her tests, because you're not reacting from emotion. You're just being indifferent to it. But it's also not flirty, fun, banter that turns into sex, right? So those guys have a little bit of a steeper hill to climb, because now they got to learn how to be funny and learn how to be flirty. But the guys that get it real quick, they usually start turning things around real quick, and it's really just a matter of getting back to the beginning of the Batesization process, and then starting to set the tone and lead the relationship, from a place of authority. And there's lots of different ways of doing that. without rocking the boat. And it's fascinating to watch because when guys start doing this stuff and they don't tell their wives about it, their wives are like seeing these changes, and then they'll start testing their husbands, right? Because that's what they'll do. Like, is this really you? You're making these changes. Is this really you? And when they're able to pass those tests, she's like, oh, huh, I like this. I don't know what's going on. Let's have sex now. And and that's the funny thing about how it works. But guys, a lot of them, they have a lot of resentment from being shut down for so long. That's a hard thing for guys to deal with. I have a bunch of guys in my wolf pack right now where they're working on this stuff, but their wives aren't behaving the way that they think they should. And I'm like, you got to stop focusing on her, because now what you're doing is what's called a covert contract, and you're only doing this in order to get a reaction out of her. And when she doesn't do that, now you have resentment, and it's never going to work if you have resentment for your wife. Okay, it's never going to work. So stop focusing on what she's doing, just focus on the work. And the thing is when you stop focusing on her, that's when she comes back around. And it's the whole thing is counterintuitive, and it's hard for guys to, because they're looking for milestones and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, 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 it doesn't work that way with women's emotions. You see, like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. You can't measure it. it's, you just have to trust the process and do the work, and she comes back around. It's fascinating to watch, though.
Because I think at the core, women just want security, right? And leadership. And when you just start confidently providing those things, all of our defenses come down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the to women's credit, right? If you haven't been doing those things for months or years or whatever, now she doesn't trust your ability to lead because you've been
Mhm.
failing this whole time. And so all of a sudden start doing this stuff. She's like, wait a second, I've been driving the ship for a long time. What the hell are you doing? Now you're trying to take back control. And so Ryan Stone likes to call it the 1,000-foot tow rope. You don't just turn a ship on a dime in the ocean. It's a long turn, and then you have a 1,000-foot tow rope. That's your wife going behind you. It's going to take a while for her to come back around, because you've been failing so long. And she's going to be testing you, and you've got to be passing those tests consistently before she's going to trust your ability to lead the ship again. And so there's no quick magic bullet to any of this stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of guys are trying to, like, they want immediate results, and they start getting frustrated and it's like, patience, man. You got to have patience. Just
Yeah,
focus on
you
you
didn't
for a
get
minute.
here overnight. You're not going to get out of it overnight.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like weight loss, right? Like, you didn't get fat overnight. You're not going to lose all that weight overnight, and you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
The
So
testing thing is, oh, sorry.
go ahead. You're
The
right.
the testing thing is really funny because as we've been learning more about red pill, that this keeps coming up, and I can look back and be like, "Oh, yeah, I do that." Subconsciously,
Yeah.
for the reasons that is all like, I don't mean to, but yeah, it's a test. Like, it's a test. It's like a back and forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Finding security and leadership in the relationship, like, when I feel
yeah,
like it's not there, it's a little bit of a test or baggage from my past coming up, you know?
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned feeling safe and secure. I mean, Dr. Robert Glover says it really well. Like, to really simplify women, they are creatures that are looking for safety and security, and they respond to strength. And that's women in a nutshell. So as long as you can operate from that perspective, navigating relationships is pretty easy. That's why it's funny. I talked about how the red pills of praxeology. There's a psychologist out there, Sean T. Smith. He wrote the Tactical Guide to Women. Great guy. He's been on my podcast. He doesn't like hypergamy. He doesn't like our focus on hypergamy in the red pill space. And he's like, just managing relationships based on hypergamy is like driving a car based solely on the rearview mirror or something. And and to that, I'm like, well, maybe, but it does provide a very easy framework to operate from that is effective. It just works. If you are looking at it from a woman's hypergamous nature and using it to your advantage, and Breifeld's law and all the fun things we throw out there in the red pill space, if you use that to your advantage, you'll find that it actually does work pretty accurately that way. And when it comes to women's hypergamous nature, they're really trying to consolidate on their best possible option. That's all they're trying to do. And why wouldn't they? right? It's smart to do that. Why aren't men trying to focus on our best possible option? God damn it, we're just settling for whoever we can get half the time. So, like, yeah, it's actually very smart that women do that. And so it's like, okay, well, I just have to be your best possible option. What's my competition look like out here? Right. And you'll find, like, especially for me out here in the western slope of Colorado, there's a lot of corn fed country bumpkins out here. Right. And so I'm like, well, geez, in order to be in the top 25% of guys out here, I just have to not be fat. It's not even that hard.
Yeah.
Right. So
I,
you look at stuff like that, and it's like it's not that hard to be a woman's best possible option in certain circumstances, you know.
while I morally um don't agree with Fort Worth Playboy's kind of, you know,
Oh,
view of life.
yeah.
I do follow him, and he does say something that it kind of resonates with me a lot, just to the point of what you were saying. He's like, if you only saw, like, if you knew how bad the competition was, you would feel way more confident about yourself than you do, right?
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it's something I try to really hit home with guys, because a lot of guys have this concept of the three sixes. I don't know if you've heard about that, right? You have to be 6 feet tall. You have to make at least six figures. You got to have at least a slick 6 inch long. You have to have a six pack abs. I'm like, that is not true. And I've done lots of videos just debunking all of that. But these guys are using that as an excuse not to even talk to women. They're like, I might as well not even try because I don't have any of these things. And I'm like,
yeah,
Dude, have you seen what the competition like? If you go out on a date with a girl, what's fun to do sometimes is go, so what's the competition look like? And they're like, what are you talking about? You're like, dating apps. Like, what's the competition like? And you pull out your phone and be like, these are the women that I'm seeing, right? And a lot of women are like, oh, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Can you believe this guy? This guy with a fish pick, you know? And you're like, that's my competition out here. So to these guys, I'm like, yeah, your competition's not some 6'5" giga chad that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. Okay, your competition is a guy with a fish picks in his bio who's 30 pounds overweight. So just don't put a fish pick in your bio and get in shape. And guess what? You're going to get more swipes.
yeah. Now you're in the top 5%. Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It's not even that hard, but a lot of guys make it harder than it has to be.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Well, Paul, we thank you so much for your time. I guess I would say what I've gathered out of this conversation is if you're a man, you're whether or not you're married or not, but let's just go, since we're married and we kind of focus on married stuff here. You're a married man, like, you're having shit sex. You're not having an enthusiastic sex. Maybe not going to put a number on it, but I can tell you, as a early 50 something couple here, if you're looking for an example, we still have crazy enthusiastic sex many times a week. So you can do it. So if you're in a
Stop.
marriage,
Make my cheeks
I
hurt.
like making your cheeks hurt in a couple different ways.
My man.
If you find yourself in one of these situations, give Paul a call. He may have some information that can help you out. And
Yeah, I'll tell you this. So I have a course that I don't know when this is gonna post, but
we'll have this up in a day or two. Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah, so this Friday, October 3rd, I'm dropping my course on passive dread game. And really, if you see a lot of my videos online, it's like dark psychology and manipulation. It really isn't. It's really about leveling yourself up and becoming the most attractive guy you can be. And then when you go out and you're social and you're attractive, your wife sees that, and now you can use this to your advantage and stuff like that. It's really not as bad as I make it out to be. But God bless guys like that dark psychology stuff, right? And if you want to get notified about it, if you go to comeonmanpod.com, I have a free ebook called She's Made You Weak. You can also go to ebook.fixdeadbedrooms.com and grab that free ebook. It explains the betaization process. And, like I mentioned before, it's a 5-step process. It explains why your wife doesn't want to have sex with you and why attraction erodes in a long-term relationship. It's a perfect place to start, absolutely free. Go and get that.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Well, sounds like a good place to end. Paul, thank you so much again for your time. We've enjoyed the conversation. It's been good. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you. Bye.